All right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Samach Zayin, Sechas Eruvin, as we're probably almost 2/3 through the Masechta. We've held up thus far. But once again, today we're going to continue discussing halachas of Eruvin, the real meat and potatoes of Eruvin. Yesterday we were talking about, we had Shmuel's halacha, when he had different scenarios of basically you have two different chatzeros, and the issue is when not everybody joins in the chatzer, they ask for people to go ahead and carry out into there. However, there is something you can still do on Shabbos, and what is that? That is be mevatel your rishus, right? You mevatel rishus, you nullify, you relinquish any rights that you have to the common area, and since it's no longer yours, so if there are 5 people part of it and one person, right, was amongst the 5, and he didn't participate in the eruv, so then 4 out of 5 doesn't work. You can't do it. But if he relinquishes rights to somebody else, that you have my rights, or I'm giving my rights to you, now instead of being 4 out of 5, it's 4 out of 4, right? So that works. So yes, we were discussing with 2 different chatzeros, but there's an issue because you can't be mevatel from one chatzer to the other. The halacha of being relinquishing your rights, according to some opinions, only works in the chatzer that you live in, but it does not go from one chatzer to another chatzer. So we're discussing 2 different chatzeros that were part of the same eruv, if not everybody joined. So we say we left off at. Let's see, 1 to 5 lines on the bottom. 5 lines on the bottom. So in going in Shmuel's halacha, when he said, "Hi bar chitzona leman nevatel," so we're talking about a case of somebody who was out of the inner yard and an outer yard. That, remember, the inner yard, basically the way to access it is walking through the outer one to get to the inner, but the way for the inner and the outer one just stays in the outer. They don't necessarily have to go into the inner one. So you had, let's say, someone in the outer one who did not join in the eruv. So he says, "Hi bar chitzona leman nevatel." Who should he be vatel his rights to? Levatel lebnei chitzona ika pnimas dasralel. If he goes just to mevatel his rights to the people of his own yard, well, then there's always also the people on the inner one who would answer, because since people on the inside yard have access to the chitzona, so they would answer it because, once again, he also is connection with them. He's on mevatel to the chitzona, but not the pnimis. So therefore, he asks them. And mevatel b'nei pnimis. And if you want to suggest that he's mevatel to the people on the inner courtyard, so then we have the halacha of ein bittul rishus michatzer the chatzer. Then you can't be mevatel from your rights from one chatzer to another chatzer. And nasnu eruva b'pnimis, if they put the eruv, let's say, in the middle, in the inside one, right, in the inside one. And if the shachar echem pnimis v'lo ma'ariv, and one of the people on the inside one did not join the eruv, and he had no way, right? And so someone on the inside one didn't do it. Shtei and asuros, then both chatzeros are asur. Why? So high bar pnimis leman nevatel, because once again, this person forgot who should he be mevatel to. Levatel b'nei pnimis, if he's mevatel to the people who are with him in the inner yard, then ika chitzon dasrala. Then you have the people of the outer one who are open to it, and therefore they'll asur to it. Levatel b'nei chitzon, if he's mevatel to the people of the chitzon, we just said ein datar rishus mechatzer chatzer. You can't be mevatel from one rishus to the other, because that is Shmuel's halacha, right? He holds that ein bittul rishus mechatzer the chatzer. And finally, the last case that we discussed was shachach echad michitzon v'lo eruv. If someone from the outer one forgot and he did not make it, they did not make the eruv, so vadai pnimis materis. Then it does not ask the people on the inside. Why is that? Because what could they do? The people on the inside from the outside one. Now, first of all, they can just be chitzon asura, right? Basically, what they do, someone on the outside forgot to be mishtatef in the eruv on the inside one. So the people on the inside one say, okay, we'll just close off the door, and therefore we'll cut off access from the outer one, and therefore we no longer have anybody asking us to carry here because we close it off, and therefore nobody from the outside, whether those who joined or didn't join, have access anymore, and therefore it doesn't answer it. So if that's the case, so Amar Lei Rav Huna B'Rei Rav Yeshua l'Rava the Chishachach Echam Yapnimis v'La'arev Amai Shtei Asuros. If you have one of them in the inside one, he didn't make an eruv. So why should that be asur? Why didn't you just say this? Livata bar pnimis lebein pnimis. Go ahead, be mavata. If someone on the inside one, just be mavata to the people who you share the chutzner with, and therefore you've taken care of those people. And you have the outer ones. So v'tisi chitzon v'tishi b'hadayu, right? And then you go ahead and basically the people from the what's it called? Vatabar Primus Nibnei Primus, and Vesesi Chitzaina Batisha Bahadayu. And then the people from the outside Chatzir, right? They can go ahead and join with them. So he says, "Come on, who is this only like? Only Rabbi Eliezer. Damar ein tzarich levata rishus lekol echad v'yachad." Now, this is the only corner of the opinion who holds that when you're mavata rishus, you don't have to be mavata rishus to everybody who's joined in it. So it's not just people of your courtyard, but anybody who's joined the eruv. Since the people of the chitzona are joined in that eruv, so you should have to also. You don't have to be mavatal to them. So that would this suggestion would only work according to Rabbi Eliezer. However, kikamina l'rabbanan, but that which we said that you can't do is only according to Rabbanan. Then you have to be mavatal your shus to each and every one. And therefore, since you can't be mavatal from mechatzer to chatzer, therefore you can't be mavatal from the pnimi to the chitzona. And therefore, that would not work in that case if one of the people on the inner ones forgot. It would not be permissible to go ahead and carry. Fine. New case. All right. So now jumping back. So Rav Chizda v'Rav Sheshes kipagu bahadi hadadi. So when Rav Chizda and Rav Sheshes would meet, they each had tremendous respect for one another. Rav Chizda martan sifsase masniza Rav Sheshes. So Rav Chizda, right? He would basically, his lips would shake, right, from his fear, right, of Rav Sheshes, or his respect for Rav Sheshes, for his ability to explain different brisas, right? And Rav Sheshes, Martia, Kule Gufe, Mipapula de Rav Chizna. Rav Sheshes, his entire body used to go ahead and shake from the pilpul, right, from the chidushim of Rav Chizda. And so what are we talking about? Okay, so now we have an exchange between Rav Chizda and Rav Sheshes. So Boimene, Rav Chizda me Rav Sheshes. So Rav Chizda, take a mask with you. So he said Rav Chizda asked a kasha from Rav Sheshes. So shtei batim shtei tzidei rishus harabim, right? We had a similar case before. Let's say you have two people who live across the street from another, and there's a rishus harabim in between them. So what happens? Ubo nachim ve'kifuva mechitza v'Shabbos, and all of a sudden, lo and behold, the goyim come up, and they build on Shabbos walls connecting the two, right? Here's a little picture, right? They connect the two, right? So you see that there's two. They have two houses across the street, and they basically build walls. So basically, now like the street in front of them is basically they share it as like a own private yard. So mahu, what is the halacha there? Now obviously they didn't make an eruv, right? But you can't have right one rishus yachid, another rishus yachid, and a shared chatzir, because two people have the rights to the same chatzir, so neither one can go ahead and carry out. But if one of them was mevatel their rishus and say, you know what, you could have it, I have no rights in this yard, then the other guy at least has the ability to carry in and out into the chatzir, right? Then he can go ahead and bring out all the stuff, and then they have a little barbecue, right? Once after Corona's over, or not a barbecue, you can't cook on Shabbos, but have a little picnic, right? So mahu, what is the halacha there? Can he go out and be mevatel? So Ali b'daman. So Gemara says, Ali b'daman damar ein bittul rishus mechatz lechatzer lo yitebelecha. According to the opinion we saw earlier, the one we just quoted, according to Shmuel, who held that he can't be mevatel from one rishus, from one chatz to the other. So in other cases, here it's not a shaila, you couldn't do it. Why is that? So according to Shmuel, right, you have to have one of the ability. You have the ability, right, to either make an eruv yesterday, or they were aser on one another, right? We talked about being ma'arev, if they have the ability to be ma'arev, or if they aser one another, right? They aser one another because if they both share, right, the rights to the same place, and if they don't join an eruv, they would aser it. So even in another case of where they had the possibility to go ahead and make an eruv, right, from eruv Shabbos, right, and nevertheless he held and you can't be mevatel from one rishus to the other. So but in this case, over here they couldn't have made an eruv the day before. Why? Because the walls weren't in existence yet. Lo kol shekain, certainly, right, they wouldn't be able to go ahead and be mevatel the rishus, right? Because remember, each one has they're part of a different house, right? Like it's like a different chatzir, right? So each one, right? They can't be mevatel because normally you hold that if you could have done it yesterday, right? So that's a reason you could do it. But over here, even according, for sure, according to that opinion, who says that in the cases where you could have made an Erev yesterday, you can't be Mevatel Rishus. Certainly in this case, they wouldn't be able to Mevatel Rishus because they couldn't make an Erev yesterday. However, according to Rabbi Yochanan, right, that one could be basically Mevatel from one Chatzir to the other Chatzir, right? From his Chatzir to the other Chatzir, right? Maybe you can do it. So Hasan, the reason why over there Hasan the boy la ruve met mo matzi marve betuli nami matzi mevatel. Over there, if you're able to go ahead and make an eruv from the day before, you would be able to go ahead and be mevatel. But in this case, the loy matzi marve metal over here. But since the walls weren't up yet, betuli nami loy matzi mevatel, you couldn't be mevatel. Dilma loy shnor, it doesn't make a difference. Maybe you don't need that prerequisite, right? Maybe you don't need the prerequisite of having the ability to make the eruv from the day before in order to be mevatel your shus on Shabbos. So can he be Bivatel according to Rabbi Yochanan? What would Rabbi Yochanan say in this case? Can he be Bivatel Rishus? Samarlei. So this was asked from this was Rav Chiz asked from Rav Sheshes. So Rav Sheshes answered, he says, Amarlei, aim Bivatel. He can't be Bivatel. In other words, since you didn't have the ability to go ahead and make the Erev from the day before, we will not allow you to go ahead and be Bivatel your Shus on Shabbos because the walls were just built on Shabbos and it wasn't something that was set up before Shabbos. Fine. New case. Now we talked about a case before of if there was a guy who was part of the Chatzir and Shabbos started. And the question was, can you go ahead and lease, right? Basically lease his space from him. And then once somebody leases his space, basically then he'll be like Mavatal that to the others because that was Ma'ariv. So the question is, Aliba, so Meis Nachi b'Shabbos Mahu. Let's say there was a guy there who didn't join in, but he died. He died and his rights of the courtyard were basically, up for grabs. So Meis Nachi b'Shabbos Mahu. Aliba deman damar seichrin loyti boilecha. According to the opinion who holds, you're allowed to go ahead and lease from a guy, right? And then be mevatel the rights that you just acquired from the guy to the rest of the rishus. That for sure you can do in this case, even mevatel. So hasha tarti avdina and chadin boy. Over there, you can go ahead and lease it and then be mevatel. So over here, certainly we don't have to lease it from the guy. We can just you acquire it, right? Certainly you could just be mevatel. So rather, who's the shad according to according to the opinion who holds that normally you can't go ahead and lease from the guy and then go ahead and be mevatel your rishus. So tarti udaloy avdinan. Do we say that you can't do two, be seicher, right, and then be mevatel? But you can do one. And obviously over here you can just be mevatel. As you acquire as a shus, then you mevatel it. Dilma loy shnor perhaps doesn't make a difference. So now we have machlekes. So Amarlei. So he said to him, Ani Amir Vatlan. So he says, I say you can be mevatel. V'amnuna Amar e mevatel. And Rav Nuna says you cannot be mevatel even though you don't even have to lease the rights. Fine, two dots. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel Nachri sheyesh loy Pesach arba al arba. So if a guy has, we say, an entrance or a window that is at least 4 tefachim by 4 tefachim, right? Not a large, not something that's particularly large. However, it's large enough to be considered to be a doorway or an entranceway. So if he has a Pesach al arba Pesach labika open up to a field. So we say, even if normally not this window, he has another entrance into a mavui that this guy shares with other Jews. If he uses that entrance into the mavui for other things, such as bringing in camels and animals, he's always using that one. But he does have a window on the other side of his house, which is at least 4 by 4, facing out into a field. We say that he doesn't ask for the mavui. Since he has another entrance, right, that goes another direction, so we could say his house doesn't open up into the mavui. So therefore, if there were 5 people of a chatzir, 4 which were Jews, and they all combined in the eruv, and the guy did not, we say it's okay because since he has a window facing the bika, right, facing the field, he's not basically part of. He has different entranceway, and therefore he doesn't need access, and therefore he's not included. It's basically not 4 out of 5, but it's 4 out of 4. So my timer, what's the reason? Because he likes his own private entrance, and therefore the guy likes the private entrance. So that was a statement of Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel, but now a question was asked. What about if it was open up into a karpef? Now, a karpef is basically, it's not like a bika, right? Rather, it's more like a storage area which is used for I guess a storage area, not as used as much. So therefore, it's not as nichale, it's not as pleasant to go ahead and use. So pasol karvi mahu. So Amar Rav Nachman bar Ami mishmei to ulfana. So he said in the name of ulfana, and ulfana, as Rashi says, right? Ulfana just means sheshama mi rabo v'rabo mi rabo. Basically, it's something that was passed down from a limud that was passed down from generation to generation, from Rebbe to Rebbe. So he said in the name, I guess, of his Rebbeim. Turn the page. Filu pasul a karvev. Even if it's open into a karvev, then that will be the guy's entrance, and therefore it would not aser the rest of the chatzar or the mavri. Now, Rabbi Rav Yosef Tavayu Nachri Beis Asayim Iser. Now we're going to soon see that Nachri and the Jew are opposite. No, because the Nachri generally carries large things on Shabbos, and the Jew does not. So Nachri Beis Asayim Iser. If he has his other entrances open into a karbev, which is only a beis hasayim, right, which is basically 5,000 square amos, right, or which is we said 72 thirds by 72 thirds, right, that square area. If it's that or smaller, then the guy doesn't use it, and therefore he used the entrance to the mavli, and therefore he would ask the mavli. However, but if the karbev is much larger, right? If it's larger than 5,000, then it does not aser, because then he prefers that entrance over the one into the mavli. If Yisrael, however, with the Jew, it's the opposite. If it's smaller, if it's of basis sasayim eino iser, he does not aser it, right? In other words, why? Because he likes that small area. However, but if it's much larger, right, and then now it's similar to a karmelis, and he's not allowed to carry there, so he's not going to use that area. Rather, he's going to use the mavui. Therefore, he would aser the other areas of the mavui. And boimine Rava bar Chilka miravuna pasuch lekarfiv mau. Right, so he said same shadows we just had. If it's open to into a karpet ma'os, hare amro beisasayim. So yes, beisasayim eno iser. So we say in the case of a guy, if it's small, right, then he doesn't use it because he doesn't like using it. He'll rather prefers a mavli. But if it's a larger karpet, then he'll go ahead and use that. So Amar Ulam Rabbi Yechanan karpet yaiser mi beisasayim shel hukaf ladira. Now we're getting to halachas of carrying, and this is the meat and potatoes. So if one has a karpef, right, a very large area, more than a base of side, and it was not made, it was fenced in, but it was not fenced in for living, right? The afilu kuraim, even if it's a kur or kuraim, which is much larger, right? A kur is 30 times the size of a saw, right? So a kur, right? A base kur is basically 75,000, right? Two base kur is 150,000. Square amos, so it's much larger. One who goes ahead and throws there from a Rosh Hashanah into this area, it's considered to be a private domain because it's fenced in. My timer, what's the reason? Right, there is a mechitza, right? It is enclosed. There's nobody lives there, but it's enclosed. So since it's enclosed, it's considered to be like a Rosh Hashanah. Therefore, one will be chayiv. So that was the opinion according to Rabbi Yechanan. However, now this is going to be questioned. So Meisiv Rav Huna bar Yechinan Sela Shabiyam. We're going to be dealing a lot with this case until the bottom. You have a large stone, right, out at sea, right? You go out to the to the rocks over by Evanston. So Sela Shabiyam Gavoa Asar B'Reichev Arba. If it's at least 10 tefachim tall and 4 tefachim wide, right, which basically makes it its own rishus, right? Right, you can't go ahead and carry from it into the sea or the sea into it, right? Because it would basically be, the sea is considered to be like a karmelis, and it'd be like a Rosh Hashanah into a karmelis or vice versa. However, pachas mikam metalton. But however, if it's smaller than that, it's not, right? If it's smaller than that, right? If it's not if it's not, let's say not 10 tvachim, then metalton, then you go ahead and carry it. Then ad kama ad basis of high. Right, until how big? Up until 2 base saw. So what does that mean? What are we talking about? Ad kama. So what case is he talking about? When are we questioning how big it is? If it was this in the case of the sefer where we said, hey, if the rock is not 10 tefachim tall, but it's extremely wide, right? Instead of being 4 by 4, it's 70 by 70, right? This very large rock, just short, right? Ilema safe base sign tfei low. Only if it's based on the side, then you can, up until then, you can carry from there into the sea, but more than that, no. But you're carrying from a karmelis to a karmelis, right? Which is not usher, because it's not from Rosh Hashanah, it's a karmelis to a karmelis. So if it's larger than that, it's considered a karmelis, and the yom is, the sea is also a karmelis, so karmelis should be mutter.
What difference does it make if there's water involved? Meaning if it's just a big rock in the middle of nowhere,
it was just talking about because if in that case, right, depends what it is classified as. You can have an open area that's classified as a carpath, or if it was fenced in or not. So basically, a sea is something is established as a karmelis.
Okay.
So we're describing a karmelis, right? And a karmelis, remember, is basically an in between a reshus hayachid and a reshus harab. So elalav, rather not a reisha. We're talking about the ratio, right? The ratio was the first case that says if it was 10 by 4, then you can't go ahead and carry. And we say ad kama, so navaki kama. This means to mean sell shabiyam gavoa sevarechav arba aim talton lemitachal yam leid miyan leseicha the ad kama. So if you have a rock into the sea, right, you can't go ahead and carry from into the sea or the sea back into it. And up until how big is a rock? Ad basically only if the rock is basically there's a surface area on top of 5,000 square miles. Oh, yes, but if it's larger than 5,000, then you could carry, right? They can go ahead and carry between that and the sea. So alma, karma sea. We see that it's a karmelis. It must be a karmelis because then it'll be mutter if it's larger than, right? If it's 10, but it's more than 5,000, it's a karmelis. So tufta Rabbi Yochanan. So what do you see over here? A very large area. It's considered to be fenced in. Why is it fenced in? Because it's tall. Remember, just like when you're on the ground and you have a fence to the side, so too if you have an area which is elevated, right? So you say that the parts in the end are basically like fences because it's elevated. So over here we see it's not considered Reshus Hayachid because remember Reshus Hayachid into the sea is aser. Only a karmelis to a karmelis is mutter, right? And over here, right, we're saying that if it's larger, you can go ahead and you can carry into it. So it must be that the large area is not considered to be Reshus Hayachid because that would have been aser. It's considered to be a karmelis. So how did Rabbi Yochanan say before that something was hukaf ladira, even if it's very large, right? As long as it's fenced in, it's considered Reshus Hayachid, and you be chayiv if you threw from there from Reshus Rabbah into there, you be chayiv at Shabbos. We see that that's not the case. We see it's a karmelis. Samarava. Someone doesn't know how to go ahead and answer up. Bryces is going to ask a kasha in Rabbi Yochanan. It's not a kasha in Rabbi Yochanan. Really, we're talking about the ratio, like you suggested. Means to say, we say, in other words, we're talking about on the rock itself, right? Question is, okay, you're talking about transferring from the rock to the sea, or so there's a rock. What about carrying a daled amos on the rock itself? You can go ahead and carry it. Ad common, how much? Ad bisasayim. If it's up to bisasayim, if it's up to there, then you can go ahead and carry it because then it's considered not to be. Therefore, it's considered what's called to be a not to be a karmelis, and therefore you can go ahead and carry on there. It would be mutter. And I'm Ravashi, and Ravashi Amar. Ravashi says, right? Liyelam aresha. Really, it's on the resha and hey number. It's actually there's two different takanas here. What do you mean? Hey number. First of all, he said karpev yesim b'sasayim shalahukaf adira. If you have a karpev, right? If you have a field or a karpev, like a field that's not used for living at all, more than 5,000. Shalahukaf ladir that was not fenced in. Ain metaltlin bo elabar bamos. Right, you can't go ahead and carry them more than daled amos. Right, it's considered to be a karmelis. And also what they said is ain metaltlin mireshus hayachid lekarmelis. You can't go ahead and carry from a reshus hayachid into a karmelis. Right. So now they're explaining what's the point. So basically, in the charlatal to the kula, if it's something is 2,000, right? That their abundance said you can go ahead and carry it. Then their abundance said even though you can carry it because it's true like you can't carry from there into the sea or sea back, vice versa. My time, that's considered to be a reshus hayachid. However, yes, but if it's more than 2 besa, right, 5,000 amos, 5,000 square amos. The asila tilta bekule. When it's now it's also to go ahead and carry it because it's similar to a carmelis. Then it's like carmelis to carmelis. Therefore, the rabbanan says mutter. My timer, dilma, because if you say it's usher, dilma amir shusayachid gemori. People say, oh, the reason why you can't carry from there a larger one into the sea is because there's shusayachid. And people will think it's a shusayachid, and therefore they'll carry it. So therefore, we prefer people to transfer from the rock to the sea than to carry on the to carry on the rock. So the Gemara says, "My shna, what's the difference?" One case you have to ask, right? It's either you allow them to carry on a very large area, right? Or either you prohibit them to carry in a very large area, or you prohibit them to transfer this from the sea back on the rock. So why do you choose, right, to say that you can carry if it's you can carry if it's larger, right? If it's larger, you can carry that into the sea. Then, in the case of saying if it's larger, you can carry it on the rock. In that case, you forbid it. So the Gemara says, to go ahead and carry on the rock. Therefore, that's more common. So therefore, we'll answer that case. But to carry from the rock into the sea or sea to the rock is not as common. Therefore, we don't need to necessarily answer the case. So therefore, the takana was only in a case of carrying on it. And therefore, only in a case where it's similar to Rosh Hashanah, when it's less than 5,000 square amos, can you carry on the rock. But if it's larger than 5,000 amos, you would not be able to go ahead and carry on the Rosh Hashanah, despite the fact, carry on the rock, despite the fact that you would be able to go ahead and transfer from there into the sea. Fine, 2 dots. New case. Hau Yanuka. So one time there was a child, the Ishtapech Chamime. So they used to, at the time of the bris milas, I guess they would have to heat up water and use water as heat up for the benefit of the baby. And it was basically considered to be a sakana to the bris milah on Shabbos or any time without hot water. And therefore this occurrence happened on Shabbos. And Amar Rabba, Naitile Chamime Megu, they say, go ahead and, so the hot water spilled out. So they need more hot water. So they say, okay, bring for the house. Amar Abaye, Arvinon, we didn't make an Erev. So Amarle, okay, Nisbach Shituf. Okay, we'll rely on the Shituf Mavi, right? You made a Shituf Mavi from one Chatzar to the Yazu, you can bring from the other Chatzar. So Amarle, Halo Shatfinon, we didn't make a Shituf. So name your Leila Nachri Laiti Leis. Okay, go get a guy and go tell him to go ahead and bring more hot water from my house. So Amarle, so Boila Sube Lamar Veloy Shafkin Rav Yosef. So said Abaye, he wanted to ask a question. However, Rav Yosef didn't allow him. Why? Rav Yosef, Rav Kahana, Rav Yosef quoted as Rav Kahana. It says, Ki Avinu Bei Rav Yehuda. When we were in the house, in the yeshiva, or the house of Rav Yehuda, Havi Amar Lon. He used to tell us, but the Raisa must vinan tiyufta v'hadav dina Maisa. If it's a deraisa and you have a problem with it, so first ask and then make sure it's good, and then do the Maisa. However, with the Rabbanan, when it comes to the Rabbanan, like carrying out from the house into the shared chatzir, Avdina Maisa v'hadav maskina tiyufta. Do the Maisa first, then you ask your kashas afterwards. So you already got a psak to violate this Rabbanan to carry out, and now you're asking, whether or not you can go ahead and ask a guy. So why did you do that? So okay, so they did the Maisa, they brought out the guy, did it. Now the basar hachi amarlei my boys levusugamar. Okay, what was your kasha? Right, we did it already. What was your kasha? So amarlei the tiny within a brisa hazah shvus. Go ahead and sprinkling by the paraduma. We say that's a shvus. All right, v'amira lenachi. Right, because I guess you're masaking, you're fixing something. So fixing something is a shvus. Is only derabanan on Shabbos. V'amila nachem shvus, and also amila lenachri. Right, when you tell a guy to do something, right, that's also a shvus. And therefore, ma hazah shvus v'nedechas Shabbos. But when it comes to hazah, we don't do it on Shabbos. It does not do it on Shabbos. Afamila nachri shvus v'nedechas Shabbos. So to over here, this should also be a shvus. And just like over there, it doesn't dechas Shabbos. Here, it doesn't dechas Shabbos. So how could you go ahead and ask a guy to go ahead and bring the water here? So the shvus, but there's a difference. One has a Maisa, the other one didn't have a Maisa, right? Because I'm not telling him to go ahead and heat up the water. The water's already heated. So therefore, since he's not doing an action, right? He's not doing anything. He's just came from the other. Therefore, it's considered to be something which is not doing a Maisa. And therefore, since he didn't tell him Maisa, therefore this case would be mutter. It's not similar to the other case, and we will stop here. Shkayach, everybody. Everyone have a wonderful day and enjoy the autumn weather. Shkayach.
Shkayach, Rabbi. Have a great day.